Welcome to the Necronama.com, where we're spending all of October looking at 31 episodes of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Today, we're looking at Treehouse number 5 from October 30th, 1994. I'm James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory.
And I'm Thomas Brungardt.
Blip, 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 blip. This is my voice.
On your podcast again.
Woohoo!
I don't have the little voice modulator things going up and down, but you can imagine it, just the way Homer does it in this episode. I understand the podcast is not a visual medium. I'm working on it.
So let me ask you, is this Treehouse of Horror 5, is this the greatest episode of the entire series?
No.
Of Treehouse of Horror? Halloween?
Yes, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Out of the Treehouse of Horror episodes.
No. I would say not. I would say it's
No.
number 2, maybe number 3.
I would argue that it's 7, and this I've seen repeatedly ranked as like the best or people's favorite, and it's really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but I thought that was interesting.
I agree that 7 is the best one.
I will say the Shinning might be the most perfect.
The Shinning is the most effective based on original source material, but I don't think that it's as clever as some of the ones in 7. That's just how I feel.
Sweet. No, I agree, because you're right, because what I love about it is how they balance it. So that actually makes a lot of sense, because you do need to know the source material to get the jokes that they did. And we'll get into all that, obviously. Yeah. But no, that makes a lot of sense. There are some skits that are better because you don't need that background to totally get it.
I feel like in The Shinning, they spend a lot of time giving like exposition and explaining to a younger audience or people who haven't seen The Shining what's going on, and it kind of makes it take longer than it needs to. But we can get into it. But I want to talk about the intro, which
I skipped that.
I know you skipped it. It is a clip from the 1947 movie 200 Miles to Oregon with Glenn Ford, which Marge presents as like an alternative to things were too scary. So here's Glenn Ford in 200 Miles to Oregon, which I feel like is a joke that Family Guy has just stolen. Like Family Guy does that all the time, where they're like, we didn't have a cutaway for this, so here's somebody singing a song from the 60s.
Here's Conway Twitty.
Yeah, here's Conway Twitty. And I appreciate the joke because it's funny, but also I don't appreciate it because it's so overused now, that random spaghetti western cutaway. Anyway. Now that I've complained, let's talk about why this episode is great. Because I think we all like this episode. I think we all like this series of episodes. It's like 4 through 7, right? So
yeah, these are episodes I could talk about repeatedly.
You might have to. Okay, so the first act is The Shinning, and I love that it's called The Shinning because there's no stupid title that is unrelated. It tells you what it is, and it's funny. Like, it's not a pun, it's not anything. It's just we changed the title a little bit, but you know exactly what it is, and I love that. It is basically The Shining. The Homer and the family go up to Burns's mansion in the mountains, which is supposed to be the Overlook Hotel, and he's there to take care of it over the winter, and Burns cuts off the beer supply so that Homer can focus. Even though it has caused the last 4 keepers, or 2 or 4 keepers, to go crazy. And if he goes crazy, he owes Smithers a Coke, which is a joke I love. And then Homer initially is unfazed by the lack of beer or TV, and then quickly loses it. Willie is the Scatman Crothers character who realizes that Bart has the Shinning, where he can read people's minds, especially Willie, and he can call Willie using his mind. And Marge is like the Shelley Duvall character, and she realizes that Homer has gone insane, and Moe is a ghoul, and he and the other ghouls want Homer to kill his family. And Homer eventually tries to kill them, but is lured out into the snow where Bart shows him TV, and he sits there in the warming glow of television, bringing him back to sanity. I don't remember exactly what TV's warming, glowing glow or something. You know how it goes. But it's such a great just parody of The Shining, and they do it so well. And there's so many jokes in it that are so funny that when people talk about Treehouse of Horror, they always jump to Homer, something makes Homer go crazy. Don't mind if I do, right? And I don't know, it aged so well, and it's still such a joy to watch all these years later, multiple times. What do you guys think?
I love this one. Don, do you have anything? Really fast, my one complaint with this is that Sherry and Terry weren't used as the twins.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been wonderful.
But what's weird is I see it so clearly in my head that I always think they were when they weren't. So I guess I've just been bitching about this my whole life. And so it manifested in my brain. Anyway, Don, what did you have?
So was that a whole no TV, no beer, make James something? Or
James never drinks beer and rarely watches TV, so it would really be more. You know what? I'm not going to tell you.
So I like this one because I think when I originally saw this, I hadn't watched all of The Shining when I was. I think this is when I was a teenager when this was on. And I didn't see The Shining years later. But even I didn't need to see all of The Shining, or at least seeing all that I had seen up to that point was good enough for me to understand what's going on here, to the point where when I watch The Shining itself, the great way that they adapted this, when I watch The Shining myself, when I watch The Shining today, I can't help but see Jack Nicholson as Homer Simpson, and vice versa.
Wouldn't you love to see Jack Nicholson yell, "Don't mind if I do"?
Oh, I throw that in every time. Every time that Shelley Duvall's character is reading, the pages from the typewriter, or when Jack Nicholson's character states a line, I'll throw in like, "Don't mind if I do," and I just kind of go on, continuing watching this. I like kind of the connections that they have to the source material, including how easily Willie dies, as what we saw with Scatman dying so easily, or Hong Kong Phooey, one of his other roles. How easily he dies, because you see him go on this long, laborious trip to get back to the Overlook Hotel to save this kid and his family. Just like you see Willie just trying to go back to save Bart, and then all of a sudden, oh, fuck it. He's dead instantly. There's really no fight. But this for me is a fun part of this episode, which takes advantage of all the stuff that we know about The Simpsons up to this point, and all the dysfunction that's there.
So one of the things I truly love about this, I love how Moe feels completely at home in his role. Like not even that he's a bartender. Like, Moe just seems like he belongs at the Overlook. It's so fucking flawless. Like, Moe and Homer sitting at the bar is on equal footing to me as Jack and the bartender whose name I just lost together in the real film. So that's one of the huge things that always sticks out to me. But that's kind of what I love about this. I love that they know the source material so much that they didn't just parody it. They took it to the next level. Like, when they do the whole thing with Homer with the no beer, make Homer go crazy. They like scribble all over the fucking walls. And it's such a cool shot because Marge walks up and it's like dark and she sees the typewriter And then you see all the scribbles everywhere and how fucking crazy he is. And they really they captured the paranoia and the insanity of that moment from the film and then put it in a Simpsons style. And that's the epitome of what I'm looking for from these episodes as a horror fan. I would give anything for them to have done a lot of other skits this well and really captured that feeling from the originals.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has that suspense of what the story is. So and this is the problem I have where Marge is kind of there to give exposition where she says things like, what he's typed will be a window into his madness. But as she walks up to she walks up to the typewriter, what it should say. And then she reads it and it says, feeling fine. And it's just so satisfying.
Yep.
That's just such a good joke. And then it breaks into the madness of Homer and everything's scribbled on the walls. And it's just such a brilliantly directed and animated shot. And there's so many scenes in there like that where it almost feels like these special Easter eggs that if you've seen The Shining, you would really appreciate. Like when the blood comes out of the elevator and Mr. Burns says, that usually gets off at the second floor. That's so funny. You can't go back to it's just brilliant writing from beginning to end. And my favorite joke in this whole bit is when he does the Here's Johnny thing, but he's going through every late night talk show host of the time. And then he does, here's David Letterman, and then Grandpa's there, and all Grandpa says is, hi, David, I'm Grandpa. I die every single time because it's so funny.
One joke that I would add to this, I would have loved for Homer to walk into one of the rooms and in the bathtub there was a donut and he pulls out the donut and he's licking it and sticking his tongue through the hole and then looks in the mirror and it's a gross, disgusting, decaying donut and he's like, whatever, and keeps eating it. I would love that joke.
Or Bumblebee Man getting a blowjob in a room.
Yes.
Krusty and Mr. Teeny. There it is.
That would be fantastic. He could look out and be like, caramba, and close the door.
Dios míos. For the record, for all the Simpsons purists out there, the quote was, let us all bask in TV's warm, glowing, warming glow. Which I should remember that, but I also love the tie-in to the end of this episode where they're watching the TV and it's the Tony Awards, and the song that's playing is a sign from a chorus line, song 1, and that's the song that ends up being at the end of this episode when they do their stupid musical outro for the special. But I like the tie-in to the earlier sketch. And then they call back to this one several times. Willie keeps dying the same way in every sketch, which I think is really funny.
I think that's great. I wish they would have just kept going with that. If Willie just died in episodes after this.
Just like King and Kodos, Willie just dies every year. Yeah, that would be great.
You have to have Willie dies and King and Kodos appear. And yeah, I think that would have been amazing. But the one last thing that I want to add to the Shinning, I forever will quote, boy, do you want us to get sued. I say it so much in my life, and always in my terrible rendition of Willie's voice, which is nowhere close to Willie's accent, let alone a real Scottish accent. So that's why I didn't even try here, because it's so bad I don't want to hear it when I'm editing. But man, this is one of those quotes that just stayed with me forever.
That and stay out of my brain from 4 to 5. That's Willie time.
All right, before we jump into the next one.
To the future.
Yes. I got to ask, because if I don't, I'm going to regret it.
Are you presenting an existential question?
No, not at all.
Oh, rats.
If, just like Homer or like Jack's character, but in this case, Homer, he requires beer or TV, or beer and TV, to retain his sanity, or at least retain some semblance of normalcy. So what are the two things, or even one thing, that if you didn't have access to it, you'd have a problem?
Oh, I'm ready.
We know what you think.
TV and Diet Coke. Bar none. I can't get through the day without watching TV, and I certainly can't get through a day without drinking Diet Coke. So those would be my two that would drive me to madness.
Mine would be Red Bull and internet connection.
Because it's the only thing you feel truly connected to in your life, right?
Red Bull, yes.
Does it give you wings?
Donna, what are your PG-13 rated answers?
Wow, what the hell is that supposed to be? It would have to be pizza. And I was thinking TV or internet.
You got to pick one.
I'll just go with internet because there, internet, because you
can watch
Netflix.
TV on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I get you.
Order my shit from Amazon.
Oh yeah, can I change mine to Red Bull and Amazon? I don't even need the rest of the fucking internet.
You can get Red Bull on Amazon.
I do. I wish I was making that up.
See, I was trying to set you up, James, because when I said, does it give you wings, I wanted you to say, quiet, do you want to get sued?
Oh, man.
I'm just going to keep quoting copyrighted slogans until you tell me to stop.
You're going to be doing it for a long, long time.
Well, what kind of pizza, Don, while we're talking about it?
Oh, you want us to get sued?
Enough of that. We got to move on to toast. So anyway.
Toaster's never lied to me before.
All right. The next sketch next installment is Time and Punishment, which I think is a cool title, and it actually works for the episode. But in this episode, Homer, he breaks the toaster, and in fixing the toaster, he turns the toaster into a time machine, and he goes into an alternate reality or an alternate timeline where Ned Flanders is in charge. He's the master of the world, the unquestioned lord and master of the world. So you find out that the world or society at large has to conform to whatever Ned Flanders is pushing, or at least what he is with his read and education centers. Homer breaks away from this place, finds his toaster, goes back in time, and then basically through a series of trial and error, tries to find new timelines to go into where things are somewhat normal. He gets to one timeline in which he's wealthy, they have luxury cars, Patty and Selma are dead, the kids are well behaved, and he says, "Oh, it's perfect. I'd like a donut." And Marge hits him with the heartbreaking news or heartbreaking response of, "What's a donut?" And he immediately freaks out, leaves. And when he leaves, it starts raining donuts, which would have been the perfect area, perfect timeline for him to be in. He goes back, keeps testing things out, and he comes back to a timeline in which everything looks normal, but the family is eating with forked tongues, and he realizes this is close enough and stops. I like this one because it plays off, again, a lot of classic Simpsons things that aren't just going to be associated with the Treehouse of Horror or the Halloween specials themselves, as far as the relationship he has with his sisters-in-law, the relationship he has with Ned Flanders. Personally, I asked this on a previous episode as far as like, what would your hell be? I don't think the hell that he was sent to in, I think, the fourth one is what hell would be like for Homer Simpson. Hell would be what he gets when he crosses into that other timeline where Ned Flanders is the ruler of the world. That would be hell.
Oh, man.
Totally.
God, that would be like if I lived in a world where Donald Trump was in charge. What?
Can I tell a story before we get deeper into this?
Sure, why not? Is it about a toaster?
No. So I have a very special, like, weird connection to this episode because as Homer's traveling through time, he runs into Simon and Mr. Peabody, who, for you children out there who don't know who that is, they were part of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends. They were the friends of Rocky and Bullwinkle. which was a cartoon series in the late 50s and early 60s. And I used to watch it with my dad because it was the cartoons that he would watch as a kid, and he would share them with me. And then when we watched this episode together and Simon and Mr. Peabody show up, it was this special connection the two of us had where it was like, oh, look, here's something that we know from something else that we both enjoy. And it was kind of a full circle moment for me because I love The Simpsons so much. He loved Rocky and Bullwinkle. And it was just special in that moment, which is why I love this bit. But also because Mr. Peabody, Simon says something and Mr. Peabody says, "Quiet you," which is something I probably quote as much as James quotes, "Do you want to get sued?" I say it all the time. I still say it. And I like that bit. And I also love that Willie died again. And that's all I have to say for this one.
That's so great. I've always loved this. This is one of my favorites. I mean, I remember watching this the night that it came out, and this was the one that we talked about for weeks afterwards, and all the crazy things that Homer could have stepped on, or different things that could have happened, and it's my introduction to the Mandela effect, because back in my day, we didn't have the internet to instantly look up quotes and get them right. So everybody just said it how we remember it.
Right.
And then it became fact. And so my cousin and I, to this day, say, I wish I didn't squish that fish, when that's not what Homer says. He says, I wish I didn't sit on this fish, I think it is. And
yes.
And I maintain that ours is better, but I also maintain that that's how it aired, and clearly Homer fucked that up.
Well, I think this happens a lot, especially with comedy things where you're laughing through a quote and you don't remember the quote because it's altered by your laughter. So you remember the gist of it, and I think that you got it close enough where it's still fine.
Here's what I think happened. They said it the way that you thought that they said it, right? But they changed it so they didn't get sued.
Whoa. Mind-blowing. I saw a meme recently that was like, there's an episode where Homer time travels, and they all say, like, if you step on the littlest thing, then it changes the future. But we don't think about how the littlest thing today is impacting the future. And I just want to say, fuck you for making me think about everything I do and making me more paranoid.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't buy into that. I don't think me awake at 2 a.m. watching Teen Mom 2 is really affecting the future.
Well, here's the thing. Everything you do affects the future.
My future, maybe, but not like the future of existence.
That's what I'm saying. It in some way, shape, or form, right? But not to get into philosophy 101. Everything basically happens for a reason, or it doesn't happen for a reason. You don't know why it's happening until it happens, or until the result of those actions take place. So if I decide, let's just say hypothetically, I were to leave my house right now and drive, downtown or by the university or whatever, right? It's a Tuesday night. Maybe people are out drinking. I mean, there's a football game in town this weekend, so there are probably people already in town drinking and having fun. Now, me going out and driving out there isn't necessarily going to cause me to get into an accident or get hit by somebody who's drinking and driving. I don't know that until afterwards, because I can't say me going and leaving this house is going to lead to that. I only know that after the fact. So, with all the people are saying, the littlest thing you do like the butterfly effect is one of those things, or the Mandela effect is one of those things that it's a good theory, but it's not something that can be fully proven as being the reality or this whole idea of causation, being the cause of something else that's going to happen or take place.
I want one of those shirts that say everything happens for a reason, and sometimes that reason is I make bad decisions.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I watched a documentary about the butterfly effect once, hosted by Ashton Kutcher, and it was very smart, and I really understood what was going on.
Are we ready to move forward?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, Nightmare Cafeteria. Skinner worries that detention is filling up too much, And lunch lady Doris has been having to use grade F meat. So Skinner thinks, hey, we could solve both issues. We'll just eat the children. And then Jimbo dies first, which is the story of my life if there's a zombie apocalypse. And then Ooter, and then Bart and Lisa kind of figure it out. They try to escape, and Skinner and Doris chase them down, corner them over a giant food processor. And then Willie's there to help, but Willie takes an axe to the back and dies again. So then Milhouse and Bart and Lisa all fall to their deaths. And Bart wakes up to find the family all around him, buried Dorothy, and the Wizard of Oz. It just feels that same way to me because they're all standing there. And Marge says, you don't have anything to fear except that fog that turns people inside out. And then the fog comes in and the Simpsons all turn inside out and they do a musical number. And then Santa's little helper comes and eats Bart alive. Really fast before we start, can I just say, I have a special connection with this skit because my dad and I used to eat my classmates.
I was going to say, this is why I don't tell personal stories on the podcast because
James is a dick.
Just get mocked for them. Really quick at the end of that with the fog that turns people inside out, when Homer says stupid cheap weather stripping, that makes me laugh every time because it's such a simple throwaway joke that is a very Simpsons thing to say.
Lousy smarch weather.
Lousy smarch weather. We haven't gotten to that yet. But I love Ooter Broughton. I love that this isn't the only time Ooter gets killed or goes missing. I think it's the only time in a Treehouse of Horror, though, because the other times he goes missing is in just actual episodes of The Simpsons, where his parents come and they're like, we just want closure. We just want to know where he is. You might even say we just ate Ooter and he's in our stomachs right now. But like you said, this is like a Dorothy at the end of The Wizard of Oz or like a Jacob's Ladder thing where it's just like we explain it away as a dream by Bart and then it's just a stupid musical number, a callback to the Shinning with the chorus line song. But I hate those endings. I didn't enjoy it this time. Not as much as I enjoyed the Peanuts one that I know you guys also loved and were thrilled about from the previous episode.
Loved it. The more I think about how much Don hates it, the more I like it.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
That's what they told me at Pornhub.
But anyway, with with this episode, there are a lot of social commentaries with this one as far as cutbacks at schools, and I know in one of the later episodes that becomes another joke, at least with Willie's character. For me, it's one of those episodes where you look back. If you'd ever worked in public education, you see how you have to do more with less, and you have to deal with all these cuts, or at least deal with shortages in certain things. And one of the funniest things that you could have a shortage of, for the purposes of this show, would be food. And it would be the meat. I mean, a simple solution is, to the overcrowding of the detention is maybe not throw as many people into detention.
Why do we keep going to school?
What?
Like, there's something else that's going on here. But it speaks to the larger dysfunction that is Springfield itself, and how the Simpsons itself is a commentary about American systems and an American society as a whole. I like the way that they at least how seriously they take this, even when it's involving Ooter. Like, they parrot, like they completely go Oktoberfest with this. So
where's the budget
anything for a little racism?
How do they pay for those costumes but not food for the students?
It's a good point you make, though. How do they pay for that?
Well, one thing I wanted to say was that I feel like this is a fairly effective telling of Sweeney Todd, and I don't think they should ever try to parody it again.
I certainly hope they don't.
This is good enough.
This concludes another episode of the Necronama.com with James Sabata, Don Guillory, and Thomas Sexbot Brungardt.